Swaddy Krap and welcome to the Thaiger on a sunny Monday morning. Over the weekend, some 13 German tourists arrived here on the island of Phuket, along with 3 locals on the same flight from Frankfurt in Germany. This is the very early stages of a reopening of tourism in Thailand, starting in Phuket. In the next few months, hopefully they'll reach a stage where they'll be able to invite tourists to the island without having to do any quarantine. This is obviously a major hurdle for many potential visitors. Now, why Phuket and why is all this sort of happening now, and what's going to roll out over the next few months? We put these questions to Bill Barnett from c9hotelworks. So Bill, what's the nuts and bolts for people who want to come to Phuket at the moment?
I mean, there still is a quarantine. You know, as we've talked about many times, there's not the quarantine's going to be lifted ostensibly at the beginning of July, but right now there's been a reduction of the quarantine. So it's a 10-day quarantine now, not a 14-day quarantine, depending on what country. So that's very important. And for certain people who have been vaccinated and have vaccine credentials, it's a 7-day quarantine. So there is a reduction, and I guess we are moving in the right direction.
If you're from Africa, basically the whole continent of Africa is considered still a 14-day quarantine because of this new variant of COVID-19.
Correct.
Yeah. Right, so quarantine still seems to be, with a lot of people who respond to the Thaiger, a real sticking point, whether it's 1 hour, 14 days, 10 days.
I mean, we won't see a significant recovery until the quarantine's lifted. We know that, but at least we know now with July, at least in the case of Phuket, that with the quarantine lifted, then we're able to kind of go back on a sharper road to recovery. But right now we are seeing increased numbers of people coming back doing the quarantine, and that is stimulating the economy as well, because, you know, a place like Phuket has a lot of high net worth individuals who are now coming back into the country as well and using that quarantine process and are incentivized by a shorter quarantine.
Well, over the last weekend, there was a glimmer of hope when the first sort of international flight came in with some free tourists. And they were from Germany on a Thai Airways flight. There was only some 16 of them, but it's sort of a start. But really, that's nothing like getting 1 million tourists per month, which Phuket was getting before all this started.
Sure, it is. As I said, it is a good start to see people coming back in. Actually, there were 16, there were 13 foreigners, and then 3 returning Thais as well. But again, we have seen those people coming back in. We are establishing a stream, certainly with the economic machine. People who are coming back for business, people who are the core group here in Phuket.
Why is Phuket? I mean, the last week has just been Phuket. All we've read about is Phuket. Why is Phuket sort of being singled out? Is it because it is an island, as distinct from Pattaya and Chiang Mai and other sort of tourist locations?
I mean, the Thai government has taken Phuket and 5 provinces as the recovery line, and they're able to say for July 1st, this is the way to reopen the country. So, you know, the sandbox model is back with us, and there's a way to reopen Thailand. What happens in Phuket is going to happen across broader Thailand. So this is the test case.
It seems to me that we're being a little bit insular in looking at all these predictions and the sandbox models. And I mean, we know the government is trying to come up with plans that have got some sort of schedule. But the rest of the world also sort of needs to cooperate. And at the moment, the rest of the world is going into what they're now calling the third wave. And we've got the situation of this new variant starting to surface, which is causing more illness in younger people. So we're sort of still in the middle of all this.
At the same time, we are seeing a large degree of vaccinations in a place like Singapore. So we are seeing a Singapore travel bubble, discussions with the airlines down there together with the Thais.
We've been talking travel bubbles, 12 months? Nothing has eventuated.
Sure, but eventually, now that we're seeing almost 40% of Singaporeans vaccinated, they want to travel. And where are they going to travel to? This is why Thailand is the correct opportunity. I think we have to understand that.
Yeah, Phuket, they're saying that they're going to do this more thorough reopening from the start of July, with a caveat that 70% of Phuketians need to be vaccinated. Now, you and I, we both know that we can't be vaccinated at the moment, although there is talk of some expat rollout. But in surveys, depending on which survey you read, between 35 and 50% of Thais say they're not going to be vaccinated. They're choosing not to be vaccinated. So that sort of makes any 70% level of vaccination a pipe dream.
Not necessarily. I disagree with that. I think yesterday I was at the c9 Hotel, and there's 5 vaccination centers across the island. And in terms of hotels right now, we're seeing many hotels which already are reaching 100% of their staff who have been vaccinated. The proof is in the pudding at the end of the day. As I said, right now there's between 4,000 to 5,000 people day in, day out now being vaccinated now. And I think that was very encouraging, seeing that proof as well. So at the end of the day, we are seeing locals come to the table. So when you look at people where the breadbasket is, they are getting vaccinated. So I think that over time, we will see 70% of the island vaccinated.
Now, in time, before July?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to put you to that.
I was at the c9 yesterday. We saw, everywhere on the island, we are seeing the vaccinations happen. I think once you gain momentum, once you see people getting their sleeves up and saying, we want to be vaccinated again, this is an economic case as well. It's about safety as well at the end of the day. And once people see other people doing it and there's some degree of fear factor which is being removed, I think that's very important.
Bill, in time, people will start coming back to Phuket. People will start coming back to Thailand. But in 2019, they had 39.5 million people come to Thailand, international visitors. How long until we see that level of tourism? Or are those days really in the rearview mirror?
I mean, nobody really wants to. Last week at the Thailand Tourism Forum, I think Bill Heineke mentioned that, nobody really wants to see the country go to 60, 70 million. That's not really the model of Thailand where we want to go. But do we want to get back to 39 million? Yes, absolutely, because we've got over 1 million hotel rooms here, and this industry is the face of Thailand. I think it'll take probably 3 years. When we look at trajectory, it's probably 22, 23, 24, and have an upward trajectory. It's going to take time to build, but common thinking when you talk to business analysts, you talk to people like McKinsey, and they make forecasts, we've seen about a 3-year trajectory going back.
Well, there's certainly a level of positivity around the island at the moment, and a hope that everything will go to plan, that there'll be some sort of quarantine-free tourism to the island and the rest of Thailand starting in July this year. But a lot of things are at play at the moment, including what's happening around the rest of the world, and a feeling that perhaps people on the island are looking at the whole situation through rose-coloured glasses.
I think they're looking at it as a matter of survival. I don't think it's right. I think the glasses are off, and right now they're on their hands and knees saying we have to have business back, and this is an economic machine as well. So I think in terms of data, people like to forecast and people like to throw numbers. At the end of the day, you need volume, you need cash flow. Hotels right now want to break even. They simply want to have enough cash flow. They're not looking at making profit. They're looking just for gaining and not having to shelve into their own pockets to support the operation. So I think it's a matter of survival right now. Now, no rose-colored glasses there. Phuket sits within 6 to 8 hours of a third of the world's population. People will travel again. People will travel differently. People will be looking for an experience like Phuket. I'm more confident sitting in Phuket perhaps than I would in an urban city, saying when people want to come to nature and whatever clean air and other aspects down here, that makes more sense to me.
Do you think the mix of tourists is going to be different in the future when the reopening happens? Are we going to see lots of Chinese tour groups and fewer Australians and Europeans? Are we going to see a resurge of Europeans? What's your prediction?
We'll still see. At the end of the day, when it snows in Europe, when it snows in Northern Europe, it's still going to snow every year. For now, with global warming, who knows? But, as soon as it starts getting 12 degrees or, under, people are going to want to come to the tropics. So there's still that demand. I think anybody who's living in those climates of Russia, Northern Europe, Scandinavia, they're going to want to come back to. So that core market is going to continue to exist. Chinese, India, these are big markets too, which are sitting on our doorstep. I don't think it'll change dramatically, but also the early markets will depend on where there's bilateral agreements, where there's airlift, and also where there's a structured demand as well. So I think that's the key. It's going to be a step-by-step process. It's not all going to come at once. We're not going to open the doors and everybody's here, but I think we could be surprised next year with the numbers once we reopen, because there's a lot of people who are tired. There's a lot of Singaporeans tired of sitting in Singapore and want to go anywhere.
All right, so the border's open. We're free to travel. Where are you going first? Where's your first international port?
I'd like to go home and see my sister in the U.S. So it's all about family first. And I think something we've learned from the COVID-19 situation is get back to your families.
Thanks there to Bill Barnett from C9 Hotelworks. Always optimistic, but an authoritative voice about what is happening with the hospitality industry here in Thailand. Currently it's all about Phuket, but the rest of Thailand is also open. We've got a list of the ASQ hotels at the moment and the revised packages. We're in an early phase of this whole reopening situation, so there will be a few bumps along the way and a bit of conflicting information even on the embassy websites. But if you persist, Thailand is waiting, and let me tell you, it's never looked better. Tim Newton for the Thaiger.